Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So today in health education, we're going to be talking about miscarriage, specifically the symptoms and the definition and some of the risk factors that may put a woman at a higher chance of having a miscarriage. So we'll take roll and we'll go ahead and get started. Monica. Here. Alicia.
Here.
Becca.
Here.
Reagan.
Here.
Alexis.
Here.
Okay, so now that we're on, I'm going to start class a little bit differently. If you're willing to share, has anyone in the class been affected by miscarriage? If you have, if you would please raise your hand. See, a lot of us are affected by miscarriage and you probably didn't even realize it. I wanted to put this disclaimer out here for you all. Miscarriage is a very sensitive topic that should be treated with the respect and the maturity that it deserves. Any inappropriate or immature comments or statements will not be tolerated. So I know that many of you have never had a miscarriage, but as we've already seen, a lot of you know people who have, and you may know someone who will have one day. So I want you guys to treat this topic with the respect that it deserves and answer questions seriously. To get started, does anyone know what the definition of a miscarriage is from your reading?
One of them is a big man.
Broadly speaking, Reagan, yes, but let's try to get a little bit more specific. To be diagnosed as a miscarriage, the pregnancy must be lost before what week of gestation? Does anyone remember?
I think it's 25 weeks.
That's not quite the answer that I was looking for. Does anyone else want to take a stab at it? Alicia.
The correct answer is 12 weeks, which is considered an early term miscarriage. However, miscarriages can occur in later trimesters from the 12th to 24th weeks of gestation.
Wow, Alicia, you paid really close attention. Can anyone name a synonym for miscarriage? Alexis.
I know the answer to this. I think it's spontaneous abortion. My sister had one a miscarriage a few years ago, and this one popped up when we were doing research about it.
That is the correct answer. I'm really sorry to hear about your sister, but she's not alone. Miscarriage is much more common than most people realize. How common do you guys think miscarriage is? Alicia.
I would say around 5% of pregnancies end in miscarriage.
That's incorrect. However, that is the average answer that most Americans give. The real statistic is that losses such as miscarriage account for approximately 50% of conceptions.
Professor Smith, would you mind giving me the name of that article? It sounds like an interesting read.
It is actually a really interesting piece. It's the Bartos et al. Piece in 2015. It's called A National Survey on the Public Perceptions of Miscarriage.
I just can't get over that number. I never knew so many women actually went through that.
It is extremely common and even normal for a woman to experience miscarriage. That's why it's so important for us to have this conversation. Quick fact though, did you all know that some researchers attribute miscarriage to a woman's body oftentimes recognizing an early stage fetus as a foreign object that the immune system has to defend itself against?
Wow, seriously? That's kind of sad. The body just rejects the baby like that.
Unfortunately, yes, Becca, it is. Okay guys, now that we have defined what a miscarriage is and we know it both broadly and specifically, we're going to now talk about some of the symptoms of miscarriage. And I just want you to know that not every one of these symptoms will occur. Some women may only experience one, or some may experience all of them. It just all depends on the person. Can anyone tell me what they think a symptom of miscarriage might be? Monica.
Maybe stomach pain.
Yes, that is one of the many main symptoms that women have. More symptoms could include like pain in the lower back or fever. Can anyone else give me another symptom? Alexis.
I actually heard that bleeding can happen when a woman is going through miscarriage.
You guys are doing a really good job guessing these symptoms. And I want one more of you guys to take an attempt at this one. Come on guys, one more guess. I'll give you a hint. The woman may not feel well.
Oh, she might feel sick.
Kind of, the answer I was looking for is weakness. Like she may feel weak. There are a few more symptoms that might not be so obvious. Alexis.
Is it true that a woman could lose the feeling of being pregnant?
Yes, that is one of the lesser known symptoms, like the absence of morning sickness. And like I said, that's one of the lesser known symptoms of miscarriage, and not a lot of people know about it. And I'm gonna ask you to list that one on the exam.
Also, I think that some women may actually experience passing of the tissue through the vagina.
I also read that a symptom that people may not be aware of is when the fetus gets a slow heart rate.
Good job on getting these symptoms right, guys. So now we're going to talk about some of the risk factors that put women at a higher risk for miscarriage after we take a second to review the material.
Early signs and symptoms of a miscarriage. An early miscarriage is the loss of a pregnancy in the first 12 weeks. Some miscarriages occur suddenly without warning, however, many are preceded by a few recognizable early symptoms and signs. The most common signs or symptoms of a miscarriage are including vaginal bleeding. Vaginal bleeding is the major early symptom of a miscarriage, occurring in 15 to 25% of pregnancies in the first trimester, according to ACOG. The bleeding can vary from light to heavy, perhaps with blood clots, and may come and go for a few days. Bleeding can be constant or intermittent, and the amount might depend on the weeks of your pregnancy. Bleeding does not always mean a pregnancy loss is inevitable. Call your doctor or midwife if you notice any type of bleeding, but especially if you have the following: dark brown or pink staining, or spotting of bright red blood on underwear. Small to moderate amounts dark or bright red blood, with or without clots or tissue-like material. Heavy bleeding that soaks through more than one sanitary pad an hour. Bleeding that starts suddenly and come in gushes. Pelvic pain. Strong period-type cramping pains are also a common sign that a miscarriage might be occurring. Some mild lower pelvic cramping with vaginal spotting can occur at implantation and during early gestation as your uterus adapts to your pregnancy. However, persistent intermittent or continuous cramps or pain can be an early symptom of a miscarriage. Pelvic cramps or pain may accompany vaginal bleeding and might be due to the opening of the cervix and uterine contractions. The intensity of pain varies but considers the strong possibility of an inevitable miscarriage. Passage of tissue, fluid or mucus. Passage of bloody or white-pink mucus material that looks like tissue. It might be hard for you to decide if this represents parts of the pregnancy from small blood clots. Some other signs of early miscarriage are the disappearance of morning sickness, decreasing breast tenderness, lack of a fetal heartbeat, and increasing weight gain after the second trimester is normal, and weight loss during this time might signal a non-viable pregnancy which is soon to miscarry. There is no need to worry because miscarriage is common in pregnancies. But you have to be aware of that condition so that you can get medical attention at the time.
Okay, so first, I would like you guys to name some of the risk factors that you think might put a woman at a higher risk for having a miscarriage.
I think smoking, but I'm not really sure.
You're absolutely correct. Smoking can increase the chance of a miscarriage. What else?
Can the woman's age have an effect on her carrying baby to term?
Yes. It has been proven that advanced maternal age can be a major risk factor for whether or not a woman will carry her baby to term or not. In fact, about 74.7% of women who get pregnant at the age of 45 or higher, their pregnancies will end in a miscarriage.
Wow, that's shocking. I'm actually doing a report on maternal age for another class I have for a paper. Do you mind giving me that article?
Of course, it's the Anderson et al. Piece in 2000, and I can also send it to your email.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
What about the size of the woman? Can that have a cause of a miscarriage?
Good job. Actually, yes, it can. High body mass index can definitely increase your chance of miscarrying. And also, irritable bowel syndrome is a risk factor that not people realize is actually a risk factor. And there's two more that I'm looking for. Does anyone remember those from your reading?
It's caffeine consumption. It was on page 80 in our textbook.
Really? I never would have thought of that.
Yes, it is true that women who consume high doses of caffeine during their pregnancy are at a higher risk for a miscarriage than those who consume no caffeine at all.
That could be what contributed to my sister's miscarriage. She drinks a lot of Pepsi and Dr. Pepper.
It could be, but I'm not a doctor, and that's definitely something that she should talk to her physician about. Okay, guys, the last risk factor that was in your textbook is vitamin D insufficiency.
What is vitamin D insufficiency?
Isn't it like if you don't go to the tanning bed enough?
No, Becca, that's not quite right. Can anybody help her out?
When a woman doesn't take enough vitamin D from the sun or supplements, it can have an adverse effect on her pregnancy.
Wow, I really appreciate you reading your book. You're actually correct. So let's go ahead and recap what we learned today. Who can tell me what the definition of a miscarriage is?
Miscarriage is the loss of a baby before the 12th week.
Good job. That is very precise, and that's going to be what I'm looking for on the test, and I'm glad that you paid attention. Now, who can tell me one symptom of miscarriage?
Bleeding.
Exactly. Who can name another one?
Cramping.
Cramping is a symptom along with back pain. That's what we talked about.
Professor Smith, you forgot that you mentioned that an important risk factor is the loss of feeling pregnant.
That's exactly right. And also, don't forget that we mentioned some of the most common risk factors for an increased miscarriage. Who can name some of those?
Increased caffeine consumption, vitamin D insufficiency, and I can't remember the last one.
That's okay. Can somebody help her out? Yes, Monica.
We also talked about how your body weight and that age you are when you get pregnant can all be risk factors for miscarriage.
Good job, everyone. Okay, so what is the synonym for the word miscarriage? That it's going to be on the exam.
Spontaneous abortion.
Correct. And you're also going to want to know the percentage of pregnancies that end in a miscarriage. So who can let us know really quickly?
Wasn't it like 75% of pregnancies?
Not quite. One more guess.
50. It was 50% of pregnancies end in miscarriage.
Yes, thank you. So I'm really glad that you guys bared with me today and you paid close attention to this lesson since it is such a heavy topic. So we're almost out of time for class today, but before we leave, I wanted you guys to watch this video of this woman. She's going to tell her personal experience of suffering a miscarriage, and she talks about how we need to contribute to the normalization of this this happening. So, and then after we watch that, we'll have a little class debriefing.
We were pregnant. Amazing. Yes, we were in love with our baby right from the start, and we shared the news with everyone. This pregnancy was perfect, flawless, in fact, until my water broke at 16 weeks, and our daughter, Destiny, died. We'd never known such pain, shock, and despair until 8 months later when my water broke at 17 weeks and our daughter, Brianna, died. Pain, heartbreak, and despair, they grew exponentially. 1 year later, as we were pregnant with our daughter, Madison, and my water broke at 19 weeks. That was on the evening of my husband's birthday. Madison was born 2 days later, and she lived for 9 hours before joining her sisters in heaven. Why is this important to talk about? Is it just another sad story in need of sympathy? Absolutely not. I choose to break the silence of pregnancy loss for many of you. I choose to break the silence of pregnancy loss because the number of women who came alongside me after each of our grief experiences to whisper, "I know how you feel. I've lost a baby too." That number was alarming. It was as if a secret society of women were emerging to say, "I've lost a baby, but I've been told to get over it." You didn't know that baby anyway. Many of these women were just like me. They dreamed of becoming a mother since they were old enough to emulate their own mothers and grandmothers. These women knew how it would feel to announce a subsequent pregnancy without inhaling the fear of the past. They knew how it would feel to attend a baby shower for a friend and pretend to be happy on Mother's Day. These women knew, they had seen it intimately, that men grieve too. But they are often overlooked as unnecessary and invisible during pregnancy loss. Men, just like my husband, who was strong because they needed to be, would grow utterly weak at the pain of recurrent pregnancy loss. Men like my husband, who has a rich and distinguished voice, would grow utterly silent as they were commissioned to be strong and take care of your wife, but never acknowledged as a grieving father. And many men, like many of you who may be full of faith, would be full of questions, even anger, to God as to why this happened to us. Oh yes, men grieve too. These women help me understand how those well-meaning but less than helpful cliches like, "You're young, you can just try again," or "at least," anything, "at least you didn't know the baby," or my personal favorite, "God needed another flower in his garden." Don't say that one. Just leave that one out. I choose to break the silence of pregnancy loss because what you give voice to has the power to change your life. But what you refuse to confess, you will never conquer. And what you openly acknowledge invites instruction. Let me show you what I mean. A few days after Madison died, I blogged about my to-do list for the upcoming day. 2 simple tasks: pick up Madison's cremains from the mortuary, there she is, and to find the expert who could help us end our recurrent pregnancy losses. Within hours, I had an email communication from Michelle in California. She was part of the women who knew the pain of pregnancy loss. She broke her silence, shared instruction, and I followed those instructions to a T. And because of that, there's our son, Christopher Ethan. His arrival was the angelic refrain to the painful melody we had lived in the past. And here's our son, Israel Grayson, stillborn at 38 weeks due to a cord accident. And here's our son, Benjamin Evan, born in 2013. Now, if you're counting, I've given birth to 6. My husband and I parent 2. I choose to break the silence of pregnancy loss by boldly, passionately, and intentionally saying the names of my beloved children: Destiny, Brianna, Madison, Ethan, Israel Grayson, and Evan, because I am not a victim of pregnancy loss. I choose to break the silence for you because I understand the power of broken silence. I break the silence to free you from the shame of pregnancy loss, to be a voice of hope and advocacy for those who grieve. Ultimately, what you refuse to confess, you will never conquer. But what you openly acknowledge invites instruction, and what you give voice to has the power to change your life. So today, I have a question for you. Are you silent? Is it about pregnancy loss or some other issue? Will you break your silence today? Ultimately, I choose to break the silence on pregnancy loss because I am not a victim, I am a voice, because being silent helps no one. Thank you.
Okay, so remember at the beginning of class how we looked around and we saw how many people were affected by miscarriage? would anyone feel comfortable sharing a personal experience that they had with miscarriage? So for me personally, I remember the first time that I realized that my mom had suffered a miscarriage. We were at church one Sunday, and it happened to be on Mother's Day. The pastor asked if anyone was a mother, if they would please stand up, and then he had those people to sit back down. He then asked if anyone had lost a child, whether that be through miscarriage or through just a child's death. He asked if they would stand up. So I just remember that my mom stood up, and I can remember just staring at her like for the longest time. And my brother was very, very upset because he realized that day that my mom didn't tell him that he could have had a brother or a sister. Yes, Monica?
My aunt was pregnant with twins, and she miscarried one of the babies. And this happened while she was at work. I remember she had said that she felt like a sharp pain in her stomach all the way through her back. And she was stocking the shelves, and I remember she said that she got up and she was bleeding. So she said she went to the bathroom, and she was actually passing tissue at that time. So she obviously went to the doctor, and there was only one heartbeat when there was actually two people.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
This makes me think about the time my sister, she had a miscarriage. She had no idea what was happening until it was all over. And it just saddens me because she must have felt so alone.
I'm really sorry to hear about your sister. Maybe you can actually have a serious discussion with her now, and maybe you can like talk to her about it. And having someone there to talk to will probably help her. And I definitely now feel comfortable talking to my aunt about this subject.
I'm sure speaking to your aunt will really help her. You may not feel like you're able to help her that much, but sometimes even just having someone to talk to can help a lot. My best friend has had 3 miscarriages, and she had her first miscarriage when she was in high school. She was a senior, and she felt so alone because she felt like no one else was going through that process, and she felt like no one else could understand her. But when she had her second and third miscarriage, she was in college, and we were really, really close friends at that time. Since she had a miscarriage before, she kind of knew what was happening, so she called me and talked me through those processes, and it helped her a lot to have someone to talk to.
Someone who I know near and dear had the unfortunate experience of 6 miscarriages. She doesn't like to talk about it because people always tell her, get over it. It doesn't matter. You didn't have a baby anyway. It's almost as if they're telling her she doesn't have the right to mourn the losses.
Thank you guys for contributing to this discussion of such a sensitive topic. So you all really did a good job. So now let's do some take-home points. Raven, can you tell me what you learned today?
What I have taken from this is that there is more to miscarriage than a woman just losing her baby. I never realized that there are other symptoms involved, such as cramping, bleeding, etc.
Thank you, Raven. Can anyone else tell me what they learned about miscarriage? Monica, what did you learn?
I didn't realize that a woman's weight could contribute to the possibility of a miscarriage.
Well done. What about you, Becca?
I didn't realize there was a connection between like risk factors and that like affect the woman's pregnancy. Like I didn't know that vitamin D deficiency could lead to miscarriage. I guess taking like prenatal vitamins is really important for you and the baby.
Exactly.
I thought it was interesting too, Becca. I also didn't realize that a woman's age could have an effect on her carrying the child to term or not. Now that I know about the caffeine consumption, I think it's a good thing to let my sister know about as well too, because she drinks that caffeine.
I had no idea how common miscarriage was. I honestly thought that most pregnancies were carried to term, so it's really beneficial to know that approximately 50% of miscarriages end in loss, so that if I or someone I love miscarries, they won't feel so alone or abnormal.
Exactly. Thank you for that. It is also really important to let women know that they aren't alone in this process, as you have already said. Guys, real quick before you pack up, remember that the definition, symptoms, and the risk factors are going to be on the exam that's coming up in a few weeks. Also, remember to read chapter 10 by next class, and also look at that assignment that's going to be on T2L. Next class we'll have our lecture on postpartum depression. All right, guys, have a good day. We'll see you guys later.
That was like really actual good lecture, wasn't it?
It was. I really enjoyed it today.
Do you mind like studying with me later?
Yeah.
If you or anyone you know thinks that they're having symptoms of a miscarriage, see your healthcare provider immediately. Also, if you or anyone you know is struggling with miscarriage, contact the Office of Women's Health and Office of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They offer a talk line for miscarriage and will provide access to local resources. They can be reached at 1-800-994-9662. Or you can go to www.unspokengrief.com. This is an online forum of other women who are going through the same thing. You can read other people's stories and even share your own. If you are struggling through this, know that you're not alone. There is help out there.